Welcome back, everybody, to the Holistic Actions interviews with parents and MDs and veterinarians around the world about what vitality, balance, and health look like to them. And today we are honored to be joined by Gail Pope, who is the founder of and runs the BrightHaven organization, which is a rescue shelter founded on love, and we'll talk a little more about that. And I just want to thank you, Gail, for being with me today.
Well, thank you for having me, Jeff. It's always a pleasure.
It's my pleasure to have you, and thank you. And let's just jump right into it. And that is, what do you think of when you think of vitality?
Vitality. Vitality is so many things. Vitality is a feeling when you feel vital and you wake up and you're ready for anything and you're excited. It's that wonderful feeling of being alive. It's your joie de vivre. If you feel good emotionally, that's vitality. Now, vitality is also, I think, very much a bodily function too, because however your mind tells you, woohoo, I'm happy, if your body is saying, oh, this hurts or that hurts and this is out of balance, then vitality kind of starts to sink away. And so vitality is related to every single part of our being, I think, body, mind, and spirit.
Great, awesome. And you've got, I think, I remember you had at one point 90 rescues. So what Dr. Christine had said?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh.
My husband and I started a sanctuary for seniors and special needs disabled animals, cats and dogs mainly, or mainly cats, because everyone lived indoors. We didn't have cages outside or anything. They all lived with us, but yeah, we started off about 30 years ago, and the sanctuary finally closed about 3 years ago. So I spent the last 30 years living with literally hundreds of old fogies.
So all of your patients were older. Older means what, 14, 15?
In the early days, we accepted all ages, and then gradually we refined our mission to offer home to animals that were unadoptable anywhere else. And gradually the age for entry kind of went up. And it eventually became cats and dogs over the age of 16, or those with a recommendation for euthanasia, that had no hope anywhere else. So those are the kinds of animals that we welcomed.
So I would presume at that point in their life, their vitality was going down, that they really didn't have any.
For the most part, their vitality was diminished. Well, yes, it was always diminished a little bit. There were those that were glad to be out of a shelter or even a home sometimes. And so they'd come in. I remember one little story. We had a new cat who arrived. Her name was Isabel. And whoever brought her had a carrier, and she was a little old lady. She was about 17, 18 actually, maybe. And I opened the door just to bend down and say hello to her, and this cat literally pushed past me. She stood in the middle of my living room and kind of looked around and went, oh, this looks really exciting, can I just go over here, goodbye, and off she went. And that's vitality. She brought that with her. Physically she didn't have so much, but that gave us somewhere to start working with her. And with a change of diet, working with a homeopath and some immune and organ support, and it wasn't long before that vitality grew into a really beautiful balance for her.
And she was 17, 18. How old was she when she passed?
Oh, good Lord. Not entirely sure I'm going to give you an exact answer, but somewhere around 23, 24.
Wow.
Could
Well,
have been older, but I'm not sure.
well, why don't you tell me that then? Older meaning, I mean, what's the oldest and what's your your pet population like? What does
Our
older
oldest,
mean to you? Because older in,
well, we are the oldest cat was Fraser, who's become a legend he was a legend in his own lifetime because he came to us with cancer in his 20s. And he had a cancer that literally demolished the whole of one side of his face, and his eye disappeared. And yet he came to us with a certain vitality. Call it will to live, if you like. He was in it to win it, and he wasn't giving up. And so we worked holistically, a little bit integratively here and there. And little by little, his strength started coming back. His classical veterinary homeopath was always on call. And little by little, he did better and better. The cancer finally, we thought it had eaten his eye completely, but finally one day, all the scabby bits came away and there was an eye blinking back. He looked awful. I mean, he looked terrible. We'd have people coming to seminars at the house, and I'd open the door and Fraser would come up and he'd be like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And he loved clawing on leather shoes and he loved jeans. So I had to very often rescue him from somebody who's standing there quite startled, like, what's happening here? But anyway, the eye came back, he could see, and he finally, after, I would say a long struggle, but it wasn't a bad struggle, it was purely that he had such a strong will to live. He died when he was, well, actually, we say 34, but I would honestly say he was probably 36 because the records are a little odd, and who cares? He was in his middle 30s,
that,
and he really didn't want to go. He wanted to stay and live in his house for as long as he possibly could.
so his spark of vitality finally just went out
Yeah, exactly.
in
Exactly.
his 30s, not when he was 14 or 15. Wow,
Nope. And
that's
then there was
awesome.
Ollie. Ollie was our other star. Ollie came to us at the age of, he was 15 and a half when he came to us as a dachshund who had a, oh gosh, you can pronounce this, a
Having a
hemialectomy.
laminectomy, right? A back
he,
problem,
right, he had
back
surgery.
surgery.
And I think it probably would have been successful. However, his 93-year-old guardian, lovely lady, she just simply couldn't care for him. We didn't meet her until later when she finally took him to the vet and said, I, I can't do it. I can't care for him. So Ollie came to live with us and she came to visit, which was wonderful. And he suffered, so many different out of balance things. He had ongoing ear infections. He had high fevers that would come out of nowhere, 106 degrees that he worked through with the help of his wonderful homeopath with lots of immune support. His vitality, again, is what took him through. His will, not necessarily will to live, his joy. He was filled with joy. And despite the illnesses that came and went and came and went, he got to 24 years old. And he
Wow.
taught us so many lessons along the way. And when he was reaching the end of his life, he had, somebody made us like a 4-poster bed that was only about this far off the ground, and it had beautiful posts at the side. And I made it into a beautiful bed because obviously he was, oh, I didn't tell you, he was in a wheelchair obviously for 9 years. And as he got closer into his last year, he didn't have the strength in his front end to walk in his wheels. And so we had this beautiful bed made for him. And in the last, I would say, 3 months of his life, he was surrounded with other dogs would walk up and check on him and check he was all right, some just to see if he had any food, of course. And then he had a team of cats. I have photos of him with no less than like 6 cats at any one time around him. And when he died, Beauregard, who was a cat who was 28 years old at the time, literally was with him morning, noon, and night. And after Ollie died, actually, Beauregard put his arms around him and
Oh,
lay with him. So we've learned a lot from many, many wise animals.
so wow. So you've seen vitality and all of its
Oh, yeah.
manifestations and all the wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what about balance? I mean, you've touched a lot on, the balance of the individuals, but what have you been able to do, or how do you think about, balance? Is
Okay.
it
Well,
just emotional? Or?
the word balance is kind of says it in itself. However, what we know for all beings, I like the word beings because humans, animals, health is the same thing for all of us. And it is about balance for body, mind, and spirit. Because when those three things are all in balance, then this wonderful joy for life springs up and brings us to an even higher level. So to me, balance is, well, we summed it all up in the creation of the BrightHaven menu for healing. And so we sat down and we started to think about what are the things that we consider to be part of our balance. And so love was obviously the first thing that came up. When you smile, what's the old saying? Smiling is contagious. It comes from love. And so it's one of the most healing things in the world. We know that. So love started it. And then I just started looking through what did we do with every single being who came to live with us. We would look at their overall health. We'd turn to conventional medicine and run some diagnostics. Let's find out what's going on inside that body so that we can try to bring it into balance. And so little by little, we started to develop this menu, and it always began with diet. Well, it began with love, but then diet. We would look at the best kind of raw meat-based diet that would fit for the carnivores, obviously, cats and dogs. And then we'd look at what's going on with their health. Do they need support? So we'd need, obviously, every single animal that ever stepped across my door had a myriad of different things made up into a little cocktail that I'd pull up into a syringe every day. And it comprised immune support and organ support, basically, plus anything else that was relevant to who they were that might help them feel better. Um, some who maybe had, some of the cats particularly, who had trouble with their kidneys, with renal disease, they would have subcutaneous fluid therapy every day or every other day, or whatever was right for them to bring the best balance so that their body felt as comfortable as it could be for them. Because once they felt comfortable inside of themselves, up would come the love, up would come the vitality and the joy. And so we worked with primarily classical veterinary homeopathy as our mainstay. I could talk forever about how I entered the world of homeopathy, and we know it takes a miracle sometimes for stubborn people like me who didn't really want to know it's voodoo, and it really wasn't ever going to be part of my life. However, I was shown some major miracles of animals who were going to die, who just got up and were healed. At that for another day, but little by little, in fact, we made it a rule that every single animal who came to us had their own classical veterinary homeopath. And well, as you know, Jeff, over the years, we built up a stable, if you like, of veterinarians who volunteered to help our animals. We only asked each vet to just accept one, just take one patient and be available to prescribe and help us whenever we needed it. Because of our population, it was really for us a 24/7 enterprise. You can't always time not being well for a particular appointment schedule. And so classical veterinary homeopathy led the way for pretty much everything in our lives, because that's how we watched the balance. And the very first thing we did, if we noticed that Johnny was just off balance, it could be in his body, he could be miserable and glum. It could be just not doing what he normally did. And so the first person to call would always be the homeopath. Let's review all this. At the same time, I'd be looking at diet. Did I need to make a change with that? What's going on? If it was a serious imbalance, we'd probably run a blood panel and see what might be going on. But little by little, things like animal communication would slip into into our list. Energy healing, Reiki became one of our major mainstays because we learned, and I say it a lot now these days when you're talking in your daily life and you say, oh, I don't have time for meditation. Just take a deep breath and pay attention to these shoulders. Let go. Oh, they went down 6 inches. Oh, take a few deep breaths. Oh, gosh, that feels so much better. That's the beginning of meditation, and Reiki is essentially meditating, especially with your animals, to be in that state of peace and heart connectedness. We all think about the brain as sitting up here, but we know that the essential part of the brain sits right here, and that's where the love comes. And so that's why love is at the beginning of our menu and at the end. So it's a love sandwich, but then towards the end of life, we have, for us, it's become a hospice supported natural end to life for most of our animals. And people often wonder, why? Do they just kind of let them lie there and die? What do they do? But hospice is an important part of our menu, and the balance and the vitality all sit together to make those animals as healthy. Just because you're old and you have a chronic illness doesn't mean you don't have vitality, doesn't mean you can't find the best balance for you. And so we seek that for all of our animals all the way to their last breath, if possible.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So your menu, just to recap, your menu is love. It's fresh food, fresh, vital food. So raw food or just any
Absolutely.
fresh food that's not processed.
Mm-hmm.
Then you individualize, based on what they need, supplement-wise, or and then it ends with love, or the other parts that I missed.
Oh yes, obviously. I should have it written out so I could put it in the exact proper order for you, but
And
love, diet, homeopathy, immune support, organ support. Oh, diagnostics come in fairly early on because we like to get a proper picture of everything. Then we've got homeopathy. We have
okay, I didn't
animal
mean
communication, intuition.
okay.
We have meditation, Reiki particularly. Reiki is a huge part of what we do. And then a natural path to a dying process. And then it all finishes up with love, because in the last chapter of
Got it.
life, love is what carries you all the way through.
Well, yeah, it's all about love for sure.
It is all about love.
And you know, there's a quote um, from Dr. Taraka, who I spoke with the other day, and I think it sums up. It doesn't talk about love, but basically, she said that the goal is to allow you to give your animals the best quality of lives as long as time possible, using love, using whatever means in your love sandwich. I mean, it sounds like your love sandwich was just here's a breakdown of all the different things that could be done to love your pets,
Mm-hmm.
starting and
Yes.
ending with that. So I know we only have a few minutes left, but I'd love to know from your perspective um, whether you think germs or love and the balance of the body is more important. In other words, if do you have any personal experience with with bugs going through the animals and seeing?
Well, that's actually an interesting question. But the first thing that springs to mind is that what we've found over the years, and particularly these days, is that when you have if you have fleas, cats, dogs, fleas are attracted to them. But what we've learned is that fleas are attracted to an unhealthy body. It's the best food for them. They love it. So the more you can make your animals, or help your animals, to be healthier and happier and vibrant, the less attractive they are to fleas. So that's one point. That completely took me away from what I was going to say. Remind me.
Oh, well, we were talking about bacteria,
Oh,
viruses, and
yes,
germs in
absolutely. So
general. Like,
fleas, and it struck me, quite some time ago, but somebody said to me, when you have so many animals, at that time I think we had maybe 70, 80 animals. And again, by those days we had horses and pigs and goats and ducks and geese, you name them, even 2 toads. But the comment was, how come you don't, at least we don't hear you talking about the bugs that hit animal shelters or the viruses, um, the ringworm, all of those kinds of things that are well known in the kind of work you do. And I said, oh, wow. Well, remember back in the 90s, we would have upper respiratories, we'd have various bugs and viruses. Suddenly everybody's got a cold. And that was around the time that we started feeding naturally. We dived into the world of homeopathy, and suddenly we didn't start seeing them anymore, occasionally, but not often. And sometimes we'd bring in an animal who clearly wasn't doing very well, but our population didn't get it. And so looking back over those years, I can see it was a gradual process. Again, we're talking about vitality and balance, I guess. Once those are achieved, you're not attractive to germs and viruses anymore. We just didn't.
or fleas, or sorry to interrupt. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, great, wonderful. So the better the balance, the less the attractiveness to bugs, germs, anything, and the better the quality of life and health long run. And long term, apparently it's a lot longer than we're used to seeing. If you're talking about kitties in the 30s and dogs in their 20s, well, that's great.
But
That's
then
awesome.
again, it isn't about age. It's not about the length of the life, I believe. It's the quality of that life. And, it's another thing that I love to preach, because for us, our animals are most often in the last chapter of their lives. And it really is all about making it. I'm not focused on how long I can help them to live. I'm focused on how happy they can be during however long they have, whether it's a few days, a few months, a few years. It's irrelevant, because if we're unhappy, what's the point in being alive if we can't be joyful?
Wow, beautiful. Well, wow. Huh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been amazing. I really, really, really appreciate you spending time with me, and we're going to hopefully get everyone in the world to focus on love and balance and vitality, and we'll have to have more chats that can go on for as long as you have stories, and I know that we have lots of stories to go through. So thank you very much, Gail. That was wonderful. We didn't talk about holistic actions, but Gail's also one of our wonderful faculty members at Holistic Actions. So if you want to learn more from Gail or hear more from Gail, certainly click over and watch one of the webinars that Gail has done, or she has a hospice course, or other wonderful offerings. So thank you again, Gail. I appreciate it, and we will talk soon.
Thank you, Jeff. My pleasure, as always.
It's fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye.